So welcome back everyone to the 60 days 60-minute challenge. Today would be day 12 of our challenge where we'll be starting for the 12th day. So we'll continue with our portion that we were studying. We have finished almost 76% of the first unit. Last, if you remember, we studied demand analysis, market structure. There are four types of structures that we studied. Perfect competition. First comes monopoly, then monopolistic competition, and then oligopoly, and then perfect competition. If people are coordinating with each other to fix the market, we call it collusive models, and the type of market that is formed is called a cartel or price leadership. Under non-collusive models, in oligopoly, where there are only a few number of competitors in the market, there are four different types of models that can be seen. First is the quantity competition Carnot model, then comes the competition Bertrand model, then comes price, then comes quantity competition with sequential moves, Stackelberg model, and Sweezy's kinked demand curve, where we see that because there are a few people in the market, the focus is price rigidity, meaning if we decrease the price, everyone will decrease the price and we will not increase our market share. But if our that means when you decrease your price, the price elasticity would be uh, inelastic. But if people will stop buying from you and will start buying from others, so your demand will decrease. So this would be called a elastic demand. Then there is a sales maximization model which says companies generally try to increase revenue instead of increasing the total profit. They try to maximize the amount of volume that they are doing, because people would be working and they would be incentivized to sell more, considering there is more profit, but I'd sell more, focus more on sales volume than profit. This model is particularly relevant to firms in oligopolistic markets where a few large firms dominate the industry. Firms follow the sales maximization model, often aim for satisfactory profits and long-term goal is the aim. For example, the best example we can see for this is the Geo company entering the telecom industry. When it entered, it maximized its sales by giving out 5G connections for free. It was trying to maximize the sales over profit. So that's how we can relate to this topic. Criticism of sales maximization model: short-term profit sacrifice, potential for market saturation, investor concerns. Next can be, you can, for the same product you can charge different price to different target audience, but they should be, market segmentation. You should be able to segment the market into different categories, example students and corporates. Second, they should have different elasticities of demand. As you change the price, the demand should change. For example, students may be more price sensitive than business travelers. Prevention of no sale. It shouldn't happen that the markets are able to transact with each other. Otherwise, it can be exploited. People can buy students can buy copies and sell it on eBay or another websites and make money off it, which we call as arbitrage. You see leverage. You see a leverage in a and market power monopoly element. The firm must have some degree of market power, enabling it to act as price to set the price, different price in different market. You need to have some sort of power to act as a price maker. So, full cost pricing theory, this states that people don't know, people do not plan their activities from a macro level. Most of the people, what they do is they calculate their first fixed cost, let's say a variable and overhead cost, they add it up, then they add a profit margin. Let's say the total cost is equal to 150 rupees, they will add 20% margin above it, which will become uh, 180 rupees, and they will sell it. They won't go to study the full market, and they won't do surveys to find out, okay, these many competitors are there in the market, so this makes my firm this and all and all and all. Now, concept of national income, we studied gross domestic product, all the final goods and services made within the boundaries of a country. This includes the people who live inside the country, whatever goods and services they are and even the other foreign nationals. Then we studied GNP. In GNP, we consider the final goods and services by every citizen. So we add a term in it called net factor income from abroad, NFIA, which is equal to the goods and services which have been made or done by our nationals, but from outside of our border, and minus the income of foreign nationals from India, because we are only trying to find the total output for all the citizens, irrespective of whether they are. And then we see net national product. Net national product takes into account depreciation. So GNP minus depreciation will become net national product. Then net domestic product is same as NNP minus income from abroad, NF, net income from abroad, NNP minus NFIA. So we get GDP, net domestic product. And personal income can be of different types. It can be, we'll study ahead. It is the income received by individual and households in a country, and disposable income is the amount of money households have left after paying taxes. Personal income minus personal taxes is equal to disposable income. Measurement of national income. We can measure the production output approach. We can measure with the help of income whatever people are earning, that they might be producing good amount of goods and services, or by their expenditure, how much we are spending, how much the nationals are spending. So we can use any of these three measures to calculate the measure. So that was our revision that we did. Now we will continue ahead, which is in. So now let us study inflation. The first thing that we'll study is the basic Phillips curve in the short run. The Phillips curve was introduced by A.W. Phillips in 1958. That means after the World War. In the short run, the Phillips curve shows an inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. What does the Phillips curve say? If there is low unemployment, that means higher inflation. What does this mean? Low employment means almost everyone is working. Everyone is working, so everyone will have money to spend. If everyone has money to spend, you want to buy an apple for 10 rupees, other people are also willing to buy an apple for 10 rupees. So the price increases because there is very high supply of people, very high demand. Everyone wants to buy an apple, everyone has 10 rupees. So as the unemployment is low, it will lead to higher inflation. And also seeing this from the perspective of companies. When unemployment is low, firms compete for fewer workers. That means if I want a new worker, there are very few workers I can, uh, in the market. So I'll have to pay them higher to attract them to my company. As wages will increase, companies pass on. As the cost of the worker will increase, company will pass that cost to you, to the consumers in the form of high prices, leading to high inflation. So similarly, high unemployment, we can see when unemployment is high, there is less pressure on wages, which reduces the cost for business, leading to lower inflation. And this is the graph of the Phillips where we draw inflation to unemployment measure. The Phillips curve example we'll see, imagine the economy is at a point where unemployment is 6% and the inflation is running at 2%. The unemployment drops to 3%. Businesses might increase wages to attract workers. As wages go up, inflation increases to let's say 5%. This shows the inverse relationship. Lower unemployment leads to higher inflation. Second part is stagflation. In 1970s, uh, oil crisis, during this time people experienced stagflation where inflation was high but unemployment was high at the same time, and this contradicted the premise of Philip curve where it was assumed that inflation and unemployment was inversely related. So that is what we call a stagflation. High unemployment, people are not earning more, uh, people have less earning power, but still the price is rising, the inflation is high. Part 3, the long run Phillips curve. Friedman argued that the short-run trade-off between inflation and unemployment would not persist in the long run. So they said over time, let's consider for now long run means long run is equal to long term, a long period of time. So according to Friedman, in the long run, Phillips curve is vertical at the natural rate of unemployment, implying there is no trade-off between inflation and unemployment in the long run. This is often summarized as this. In the long run, there is no trade-off between inflation and unemployment. This is because over time expectations about inflation adjust. If inflation keeps rising, workers will demand higher wages to keep up with the rising cost of living, which can result in inflationary spirals. And second part that we study is misery index. Misery index says that and the misery index is measures the rate of unemployment and inflation which we just studied in Phillips curve. It says the economic distress or my misery experienced by a population is equal to the combined effect of high inflation rate and employment. If both are high, the misery index goes high because you are unemployed and inflation is also increasing. So this is based on the stagflation. If stagflation happens, we cannot use Phillips curve to define how the state of the economy will be. So we will use misery index, which increases as both increases. So let's take an example where unemployment rate is 7%, inflation is 3%. The misery index of country would become 10%. In another scenario, the unemployment rate is 10, misery is 16, the country would be 16. So we can say a higher misery index suggests worse economic condition, where high inflation combined with high unemployment leads to significant economic hardship. So first we studied Phillips curve, where we studied the relation. So we just studied in Phillips curve uh, that the in unemployment rate and the inflation are inversely related in the short run. In the long run, unemployment equals natural. It becomes independent of the inflation rate. So stagnation can also occur where unemployment keeps on increasing, and the sacrifice ratio is closely related. The sacrifice ratio measures the cost in terms of lost GDP or production that a country must endure in order to achieve a reduction in. We just studied that if the unemployment is low, it leads to high inflation. So if we want to, let's say, reduce inflation, unemployment will go high according to Phillips curve, will increase if we try to reduce inflation. So unemployment is going high, it means there is less the total output is decreasing because those people would have been working, correct? So we calculate sacrifice ratio again as the loss of output because of increasing inflation upon total reduction in inflation. See, if we try to, again I'll just repeat it, if we try to decrease inflation, unemployment will go high. If unemployment is going high, it means those people would be working. If we were not trying to reduce the inflation, then those people would be employed. So total loss of output because of high unemployment upon total reduction in inflation that we achieved by decreasing inflation. So that ratio will call sacrifice. This is also related to the Phillips curve. So if inflation drops by 2% during the time when the economy's GDP falls 6%, the sacrifice ratio is 6 by 2, 3%. It means 3% of GDP was lost for every 1% fall in inflation. Now comes Ogun's law. We studied Phillips curves in terms of two terms, unemployment and inflation. Misery index also two terms, unemployment and inflation. Sacrifice ratio also unemployment and inflation, and unemployment in the form of loss of GDP output. Now we will study Ogun's law. Ogun states for every 1% increase in unemployment, a country's GDP will typically be an estimated 2% lower than its potential GDP. So what this means, if we, we increase the unemployment rate 1%. Okay, so less people are working. So it says the GDP will typically 2% lower than its potential GDP. So the GDP could will will suffer by 2% if we increase the unemployment by 1%. High and see, if there is high unemployment, it means low output. We could have produced much more if everyone was employed. So when more people are unemployed, the economy is not producing as much as it could. Simple. If the unemployment goes high, those people would be working, which they are not. So the GDP is suffering. Correct. So that is Ogun's law. This the previous three were a relationship between unemployment and inflation, right? Ogun's law is unemployment and GDP. So these were all the basics of inflation, the laws and the graphs. Now we will study some terms here. The consumer price index. The consumer price index measures the average change over time in the prices paid by urban consumers for a market of basket of goods. It reflects the cost of living for the average consumer and is commonly used to assess inflation from the consumer's perspective. So, if we talk about consumer price index, we all know we all might have studied in our previous calculate used to measure inflation. How we take different amount of goods. Let's say the things that you use every day: milk, bread, eggs, let's say some few vegetables, and so on and so on. And now these few items, you fix the quantity, measure the price of all these items together and check the price if it has increased year on year and by how much. Let's say the price of all these items in the month of January of this year was 1000 rupees. In the next year, this coming January, it will become 1200 because of inflation. So we will calculate the consumer price index as 20% of the inflation over the period. The wholesale price index measures the price of goods at the wholesale level. Prices charged by producers or wholesalers to retailers before reaching the final consumer. It reflects price trends in the early stages of production and distribution. So now wholesale level is measured. We check generally a manufacturer makes the product, he sells it to his distributors or the wholesalers who then sell to individual retailers. Previously we were buying directly from the nearest kirana shop, so it would be termed as uh, retailer retail price. Now we are considering wholesale price. Wholesale price simply means it is the price of goods at the wholesale level. Price is charged by consumers or wholesalers or retailers before reaching the final consumer. So if you buy from directly from the wholesale, if you know the wholesale and you buy from the wholesaler, obviously you will get cheap. So if you measure the cost of the basket of goods, uh, we will call it the wholesale price index. So regarding GNP, we will study it is the total value of goods and services produced by citizens of a country regardless of whether the production occurs within the country or abroad. We just studied this. It is equal to GDP plus net income factor from abroad. Next we see is the GNP deflator. The GNP deflator is a broad measure of inflation and it reflects the change in prices for all the goods and services. So GNP is used to convert nominal GDP measured at current prices upon RP adjusted for inflation into 100. What it helps us to know that the prices have risen by 20% since base year. That is what we get the idea. Nominal GNP is the current GNP that we have measured at current prices. Real GNP is adjusted for inflation into 100. Rate of change of GNP deflator. The rate of change of GNP deflator is the percentage change in the GNP deflator over time. Typically from one year to the next, it is used to track inflation trends across the entire national product. So this we calculate as GNP deflator in current year minus previous year upon previous. Now at what rate the GNP deflator is changing, that is what we are measuring. This can also be said as the rate of change. In year 1, if the GNP deflator rate was 110, in the year 2 it is 121. So the rate of change would become 121 minus 110 upon 110 into 100. If the GNP deflator is, now we are talking about GNP deflator, not rate of GNP, okay? If the GNP deflator is greater than 100%, it means prices have increased since base year. If the GNP deflator is less than 100, prices have fallen since the base year. Rate of change of, if the rate of change of GNP deflator is positive, inflation is increasing. If the rate of change of GNP inflator is negative, it means economy is experiencing deflation. So GNP deflator is a price index, but it's static, it shows a level. Rate of change of GNP deflator is a dynamic, it shows how fast the price level is changing, which is exactly what inflation is. Next we come through a theory of inflation called the structuralist theory of inflation. It was proposed by Gunnar Bridle and Peter Streeton in 1950s and 60s. This is a question that we have practiced many times in this Unit 1 evaluation. The theory posits that inflation in developing economies is often caused by structural issues within the economy rather than traditional demand side or uh, supply side factors. This theory criticizes the Keynesian theory of inflation, which focuses on demand side factors as the main cause of inflation. Myrdal and Streeton argue that inflation in developing countries arises due to structural factors such as inequalities in income distribution, the production structure, and imbalances between different sectors of the economy. Key point: structural imbalances. Developing economies often face imbalances between sectors, causing inflation when demand outpaces. Large income disparity contribute to inflation as a wealthy population demands more goods, raising prices for everyone. Inflation is also driven by rising cost of imports, which developing countries often depend on. Monopolistic practices in key sectors like energy and transport. One can guess, is this the scenario in India? Is there a monopolistic practice in key sectors like energy, transport, and oil? If so, it would push prices up due to lack of competition. And structural reforms such as improving productivity and reducing inequality are needed to address inflation in developing countries. And take the case of India during 1960s and 70s, which was undergoing a process of industrialization while still largely dependent on agriculture. The Green Revolution had increased agricultural output in some regions, but overall agricultural productivity was still low. At the same time, the industrial sector grew rapidly, leading to higher demand for goods. However, the agricultural sector couldn't meet the rising demand due to supply constraints, and the economy relied on imports and essential commodities like food and oil. In the case, inflation was not just as a result of excess demand or high money supply, it was driven by supply side constraints, low agricultural productivity, monopolistic practices, and economic inequality. The theory of inflation helps to explain the long-term and deep-rooted causes of inflation in this context. This we will mark it complete. So we have finished one full module of inflation. Uh, we will take a 5 minutes break and then continue back at 7:30. So we are back. So business ethic refers to the moral principles and values that guide the behavior and decision of a company and its employees. It involves the application of ethical principles to business practices, ensuring that businesses act responsibly in their operations. To exist and be successful in a competitive world, a business has to be ethical. An ethical organization can be recognized on the basis of its corporate excellence and also on its relation with the stakeholders. So the moral principles and values that guide the behavior and decision of a company is called business ethics. There are six major ethical frameworks. First is utilit- utilitarianism. It means the right action is the one that maximizes. We can consider here as happiness. The one which maximizes overall happiness is called the utilitarianism principle. Or well-being for the greatest number of people. Consequences of actions. The end. This also means the ends justify the means. Application in business. A company might make a decision that benefits the largest number of stakeholders. A company decides to cut cost by laying off a small number of employees, but the savings are reinvested into a new product that benefits a large number of customers. Second is rights or duty-based ethics. Actions are right or wrong based on whether they respect the moral right of individuals regardless of the consequence. So, individual rights respecting autonomy, privacy, freedom, and fairness. A decision should ensure that people's rights, such as the right to privacy or the right to fair compensations, are upheld. Ensuring all employees are paid fairly for their work and not discriminated against, regardless of how this affects company profits. Justice based ethics. Core idea fairness is the core of this framework. Justice based ethics advocates for equal treatment and fair distribution of benefits and burdens. Fairness and equality, distributing benefits and burdens in a way that is fair to all stakeholders. Example, and it ensures that employees, customers, and other stakeholders are treated equitably and that no one is unfairly advantaged or disadvantaged. Example, a company follows the same job, same wage principle, ensuring that all employees doing the same work are compensated equally. This rarely happens in a corporate where you are paid the same wages for the same job. Virtue ethics. The right action is the one that is in line with moral virtues such as honesty, courage, fairness. Virtue, character, and integrity is the focus here. Decision makers are encouraged to act in a way that feels reflects virtual characteristics and promotes the well-being of others, not just the bottom line. A company may decide to take the responsibility for a product defect, not because of legal obligation, but because they believe it is the right thing to do in terms of character and integrity. Ethical relativism. It means each principles are not universally applicable and the rightness or wrongness of an action depends on the cultural, social or individual belief. Context and cultural norms are important here. A norm which is socially acceptable in USA will not might not be acceptable in India, or a norm which is acceptable in India will not be acceptable in USA. Application in business. A company might follow local customs and practices in different regions where they operate, even if those practices differ from the country's home standards. In some countries, business practices like gift giving or hospitality are essential for building relationship, while in others, such action may be seen as unethical. Core idea, egoism. An action is right if it promotes the self-interest of the decision maker or the company as a whole. Key focus, self-interest. Example, a company may cut cost by reducing employee benefits to maximize shareholder profits, arguing that the decision ultimately benefits the company's success and sustainably. In short, if we want to remember, we can remember these questions to answer. Which type of business ethics are we following? Utilitarianism, how can I do great good for the greatest number of people? Duty based, how can I meet obligations under absolute universal moral law? Virtue, how can I ensure I'm behaving with high moral character? Relativism, how much I behave to be considered acceptable in to those in my society? How should I behave? Justice, how should I act so that I treat others fairly and equally? And egoism, how can I act that I can benefit my own self-interest? Uh, Ethical behavior clusters in business organization. Ethical behavior is critical in shaping an organization's culture, reputation, and long-term success. Organization often categorize actions into ethical behavior clusters to understand and navigate ethical challenges effectively. Below are the key clusters that guide ethical doing anything improper that will harm the organization. We shouldn't do. Examples of actions of fraudulent practices, misleading stakeholders, personal gain. Customer centric focus should be honesty, transparency, and increased satisfaction of the customer. Honest marketing and advertising, delivering quality products and services, transparency in communication. Become organization citizen. We should act on the basis of responsibility, accountability, and adherence to organizational standards. Being good to customers are thereby ensuring high quality services. Conclusion. Ethical clusters are guide organization in assessing the ethical implication of their actions by focusing on organizational integrity, customer satisfaction, responsibility and accountability, and customer value. Case study, this we can read in this question. This is a question that has already been asked, so we can go through the information here. And this is another case study that had been mentioned, so you can go through it also. And this is a case study of corporate governance that you can read. And we'll just go one Anglo-Saxon model of corporate governance. It is a market-based, shareholder-centric corporate governance. It says the Anglo-Saxon model of corporate governance says no single investor. It was eventually, it says there is a hierarchy of power and accountability. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility. It means if you have been given the power, I will hold you accountable. If I make you the CEO, I will make you answerable. The worst condition, even in your life, you can think about it. The worst condition will be where you are given the responsibility, the accountability, but you have no power. How will you do? If I tell you you are accountable to make sure the whole company is profitable, but I do not give you the power to control all the different departments of a company, how will you make it how will you make it profitable? If you are giving responsibility, there should be power with it. Otherwise, you cannot carry out the task required to achieve that responsibility properly, or that accountability, or that aim. So it says there is a hierarchy of power and accountability in this model where shareholders come at the top. They are the owners of the company. They form the board of directors and they have the top authority. Whatever they say goes. Then comes the board of directors who have strategic oversight over the shareholders. They have the power to hire and fire executive. They set broad policy and approve major decisions. Then comes the managers, middle management, then comes the employees at the end, and the last comes the trade unions. Trade unions, in some cases, they are present, some they are not. Its case, with great power comes great responsibility. The Anglo-Saxon model of corporate governance, we can remember the Spider-Man quote for it. So now we have three types of market left to study. Elasticity of supply we studied. If the supply changes, produces an elastic supply means when there is a change in price increases, the supply also can increase. Producers can easily increase supply when the price rises. Inelastic, producers cannot easily change supply when the price rises. This we have studied previously, elasticity of demand. Now we will study time preference for money. Generally, when I say I would prefer 1 lakh right now or 1 lakh in the future, you will say right now. So time preference of money refers to the concept that people generally prefer to have money sooner rather than later. In other words, individuals value present money more than future money. This preference arises because of various factors including ability to use money for immediate consumption, the opportunity to invest and earn a return, and the uncertainty about the future. Key concepts. Immediacy of consumption. People often prefer to consume goods and services now rather than wait for a future time when they could have the same goods or services. Immediate access to money allows for more immediate consumption or investment. Opportunity cost of waiting. When someone chooses to wait to receive money, they let go of the opportunity to invest or use that money elsewhere. Example, if an individual receives money today, they could invest it in stocks, start a business, or buy a product that improves their life immediately. Risk and uncertainty. Future money may not be as certain or reliable as money available today. For example, due to inflation, 100 rupees today can become 150 rupees tomorrow. We cannot say how much inflation will increase. So, and the fourth is the interest rate. The rate interest rate is often a reflection of the time preference of money. A higher interest rate indicates that people place a higher value on present money compared to future money. Essentially, the interest rate compensates individual for postponing consumption and taking on the uncertainty of receiving later. If I give you a high interest rate, you will be ready to keep money with me. If I give you low interest, you will not keep money with me. So that is what is the interest rate. So people always prefer to have money right. These are the reasons why. Opportunity cost of waiting. They can directly use that money right now, or the money will not be valuable in the future, or inflation will be high, or there are low interest rates right now. Now production cost we studied there are two types of production cost, implicit and explicit. We can also study the marginal cost, which is if you how much would it if you produce one more unit, how much would it cost you. This technically doesn't come into accounting costs, but in production cost. Accounting cost, you are only concerned with implicit cost, and in economic cost you are concerned with implicit and explicit cost both. And sorry, it was my mistake. In accounting you are only considered with explicit cost, what you spend. For calculating economic profit, you are interested in implicit and explicit cost, and in production cost you will see marginal cost, which you calculate how much will it cost me to produce one more unit, and then you decide if you want to increase your production or not. And incremental cost refers to additional cost incurred when there is specific change in product process. If you are expanding the production line or launching a new product, what is the more cost that you have to pay. And the sunk cost is the cost that you have already incurred and cannot be recovered. These costs should not affect future decision making since they are past expenses that cannot be changed. Sunk cost happens, the point, let's say you are doing a degree in engineering, second year, third year, you decide you want to do accounts. You are not ready, it doesn't make sense for you to continue engineering. So if you switch, then it will be called a sunk cost. Most people by human nature do not like to sunk. Let's say the share price of a company is decreasing. You will not be ready to sell it. Let's say you buy it at 100 and now it is at 60. You can technically sell it because you think it might go lower, but you will keep it until it goes to 10 rupees. Even though you were made aware at 60, you were aware about the market price from 60 rupees. So that is the sunk cost. People generally don't prefer to switch. They want to invest more into the sunk cost, which one should be careful about. So finally we reach the rapid fire page. We have covered all the theory questions that could be asked. Now we will go through it again. We still have 5 to 10 minutes, so let's go through rapid fire and try to solve it right now when we have learnt everything. Here we have studied that Giffen is the lower quality, Veblen is the higher quality. And Veblen we don't have. Giffen is the subclass of inferior products. So it will should start from E. And then it is a subclass of inferior products, so directly after E should be B, which is both true. Then comes A, necessities. Then comes normal goods. Then comes luxury. D should be at the last, which is correct. Here it is A. So this is the answer. It is Midvale Steel Company or Corporation. Midvale Steel Company. 7F approach is a topic from the ahead module, which we'll study later. So let's see. I remember operational management, it would be something Wilfred Pareto, Henry Fayol, Elton Mayo. Okay, let's see. This is a tough one. I believe operation manager, yes, Henry Fayol. We studied, it would come under operation management because I believe Henry Fayol gave us the 14 principles, right? The things that we studied. See, first we studied operation management concept, which started with uh, scientific management by F.W. Taylor. Then we studied 16 or so. So operation management would be Henry Fayol. Elton Mayo was related to, I believe, behavioral approach, we will say it goes to Elton Mayo. Remember the Hawthorne studies? I believe it. The social system would be Wilfred Pareto. So we will go with this one. This was a little tough just to recall. These were the different domains that they have mentioned: operational management. This fishnet, I believe so. First is true, but statement 2, this much is true. And not on its relation, negation is hardly ever true. So first is true, second may be incorrect. Because this strong negation, this part, first part is true, but the next part, strong negation, doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Planning premises are defined as anticipated environments in which plans are expected to operate. Correct. They include assumption of forecast of the future known as conditions that will affect the operation of plans. True. No distinction should be drawn between forecast that are planning premises and forecast that are translated into future expectations. This is false. Why should we not draw any distinction between forecast when they are used for different purposes? So statement 1 is true, statement 2 is incorrect, we will say. Ah, we were right, we just marked the wrong answer. So we have 9. Let's go again. So we took a little break, so let's try it one more time. Mandatory and non-mandatory recommendation, so two categories. It is either 2 or 3. It cannot, corporate governance cannot encourage accounting jugglery. It is a bad. And there we go. We should have read the passage. We were trying to find out based on whether the options are positive or negative, which is bad. Okay, find the correct sequence of management theories in their origin. Henry Fayol, the administrator. Okay. First will come F.W. Taylor, scientific management theory. That is what we studied first. And there is only one option starting with D. This we have seen before. Ethical decision, same job, same wage comes under justice. We just studied this today. Correct. Now, the equation of market and demand, supply and demand equation is given at equilibrium. Supply is equal to demand. So if we do it in our mind, 30 minus 3p is equal to 20 plus 2p. Minus 20 from both sides. 10 minus 3p is equal to 0 plus 2p. We will do plus 3p on both sides. So 10 is plus 0 is equal to 0 plus 5p. So 30 is equal to 5p. So p is equal to 30 divided by 5, which is 6. So we got the value of PS6. Now we want to find equilibrium demand. So we will put PS6 30 minus 3 into 6 18. 30 minus 18 12. No, we got 6. Yes, we got 6. So this was 10. Sorry, this had become 10. 10 upon 5p. So p would become 2. So 30 minus 3 to the 6p 24. Just we studied, it is the rate of change in GNP deflator. We would say organization are experiencing acute pressures to change and pursue innovation as a means of securing business growth. Or maybe A or B. This we just did. First is true, second is false. Advantages of corporate governance. First, we will read the answers. Hiding excessive remuneration of directors and CEOs. False. This is a negative effect. Avoiding competition. Could be neutral, could be favorable, but I don't know. Discouraging individual decision making. False. This is a negative behavior. Improving investor confidence and relation. This is only the positive statement in these options. But it is asking for advantages. So this is the positive answer. Without sometimes reading, you can find the answer, but you should always read because the passages are quite small. In passages, always do the following: first read the question, then the alternatives, then try to read the passage and read all the questions related to that and all the alternatives before starting with the passage. This we just discussed that this part of the statement is not true. On the essential conditions for price discrimination practice to succeed in different markets, firms must have strong interdependent, let's see, differentiated products. Yes, and strong entry. Markets for the product must be separable. Price information, we just studied this today. 5 is definitely true. This is not the answer. This is not the answer. It is 245 or 345. So either 2 or 3. Firms have some control over the price of the market. We studied the CS second, so it is 245. We just studied this topic and this topic under price discrimination practices. Why do we use corporate governance, it is asking. It brings order and methods in decision making process. See, that's how easy the passages are in exam. Okay, so this we will study. First we will understand, we can understand the demand. Okay, let's see. Last will be demand forecasting. This we can say, whether it starts with one or two, it starts with utility analysis or a law of demand. That is important. So now I really am not sure if it starts with utility analysis or law of demand. I will see the options. To confuse us, they have repeated two twice, so two might be between these two. Two might be the correct answer. So see, that's how you play the options as well. I was not sure between B and C, so I saw which option is repeated to confuse me. Missionary organization norm standardization, because they have a core belief. This does not have a D, this has a D, this has a D, this does not have a D. C and D. So is A true or false? If A is there, this is the answer. See, A, C, D, and E cannot be the answer. Why? C says innovative organizations primarily focus on mutual adjustment. Innovative organizations do not focus on mutual adjustment. Both cannot be true at the same time. So C and E cannot be the answer. So it is C and D. By just knowing one missionary one, I was able to find the answer by eliminating the options. Approach it. This we'll have to read. What is the benefit of adhering to corporate governance for investors? True financial performance of a company, openness and governance policies give investors confidence. Recommendations were to apply to all listed private and public companies, their directors and management. So listed private and listed public sector companies A and B, and directors, management, employees and professionals A, B, and D, professionals associated. Yes, A, B, and D from here. Flexible organization design which can form and reform varied pattern of connection is known as, it can be a fishnet. I would say learning. It's fishnet. My mistake. Because it was a learning organization, I thought. So we finished 16, our highest till date on day 12. So we'll try to practice this. Keep on practicing. And yeah. Mm, yeah. And that will be all for tomorrow. Again, if we are able to let's say finish, if tomorrow we'll aim for 20 questions and under 10 minutes. So if we are able to finish, get 20 marks on this test, we will move ahead, because in the time limit 30 seconds per question is enough for one question. And if we do not answer anyone wrong out of the 50, we keep on answering it correctly. Yes, we will keep it till that. So thank you everyone. Any questions, do let me know in the comments below. So today is our day 12 and we have finished the unit 1. So technically for anyone who wants to study this unit, it will take him, let's say, 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours to finish this all theory. And we can say we can keep 2 to 3 hours for practicing the unit. So in short, unit 1 can be finished in 15 hours. So thank you so much for joining the UGC NET 60 days 60 minute challenge. I'll see you again tomorrow.